Hey, everybody. I don't know if I mentioned, but there's going to be so many live streams this week because I'm doing a ton of these incredible conversations with panels and with one-on-one interviews with authors like we have today. And that's because I'm going to be gone all next week. Not gone, really. I'm going to be doing a virtual conference for a client, Cal Wick. And it's really exciting, but it is a full week of activity behind the scenes for me. I didn't think I could handle one more thing on my calendar. So sit back and enjoy. If you're missing any of this, you can always find all the shows as they air at bizbookpubhub.com. Without any further delay, it's a pleasure to introduce today's guest. I'm excited to introduce one of the incredible authors I had the privilege of coaching through a successful book launch. Today's guest is a leadership coach, consultant, and educator with over 25 years of experience helping leaders build the habits and skills they need to lead with more grace, intuition, and effectiveness. Through her company, Authentic Edge, she works with middle and senior level leaders to transform how they show up, empowering them to create stronger, more authentic connections without overwhelming their already full plates. With a doctorate in leadership and a background spanning industries like construction, IT, manufacturing, and healthcare, she brings a deep understanding of what it takes to shift company cultures and reframe leadership challenges into opportunities for growth. She's passionate about helping leaders ditch the idea of difficult conversations and instead dance with any partner, no matter their personality or skill level, with ease and confidence. She's the author of Reframing the Leadership Dance, The Secret to Finding Your Rhythm as a People Leader, where she shares her powerful, practical approach to building authentic, sustainable leadership practices. Please join me in welcoming Stacey Larsen. Stacey, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Robbie. That wasn't a mouthful at all, was it?
Not a mouthful at all. And in fact, I love when I get to write these up and learn more and more. Like, I feel like I learn things about you just by writing up this. You're impressive on paper. I love that I've gotten to know you in actual off paper moments. I'd love to hear more about the intended audience behind the book that you wrote. Like, you mentioned middle and senior level executives. Like, give us a little more of a picture of who you had in mind.
Well, really, my book and my coaching is for anybody who leads people, but it's especially for those leaders that are in the middle. They've got people above them, they've got people below them. They have dances with all kinds of people throughout the organization all day long. And I wrote it especially for people who want to feel lighter and who want to do less and get better results.
Did you have clarity about that ideal reader from the get-go because of who you were working with, or did that start to take more shape as you were going through the writing process?
I think I've always really gravitated toward those middle leaders. I used to tell leaders that when I was coaching them that I love the sticky middle. And I used to originally be a middle school teacher.
Yeah.
And I just say that, adults are just big middle schoolers.
Those awkward years.
Right? And aren't we all awkward anyway? I feel like as I created my Authentic Edge branding, it is definitely about being yourself and coming into your own leadership style, but also being able to figure out what authentic person is in front of you that you're dancing with anytime too. And I've just always had that thought of the middle is the sticky place. The middle is the place I like to play.
So I'm thinking about how you have all this schooling. You have a doctorate and you have an academic sort of framework and backgrounds to think about this. Then you have your lived experience with these clients that have these challenges. You have been busy doing this work now for a while without a book, and you were finding the right people, you were collaborating, you were doing excellent work. What is the impetus to do the hard thing and write a book? Like,
Yeah.
what, come on, it's a lot of work. Like, you were doing fine, right? Like, now what was the motivation that you initially had about a book? And I'm sure it changed, so I want to talk about that second. But what was the initial motivation to write a book?
One of the things that happened for me in the last maybe 5 years is that I did a shift in how hard I was working when I was working in leadership and on leadership. And one of the things that happened for me was a lot of my classes that I taught, whether it was at university or whether it was in an organization, they were always interactive, but they were content driven and exercise driven, just like anybody who's done leadership development and learning and development. But I had a huge shift, and I started making all of my leadership labs and coaching and anything more about dancing in the moment and really looking at what people are dealing with right now, and then taking the content that I know from all of my background and bringing in exactly what was needed at that time. And the same patterns kept showing up. And as I started to see my new method of teaching taking hold and people really blossoming from it, seeing better results than I'd ever seen in any other class that I've taught, I thought, you know what? This needs a wider audience. This needs to help leaders, because leaders today are burnout risks. Any good leader right now, we're overwhelmed. What did I see the other day? There's a statistic about 64% of leaders feel like they're doing too much every single day.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, yes, I'm one of them. That resonated. I'm sure a lot of people were like, gulp, stop talking about me. Hey, Stacey, what I want to pull out of what you just said is that you didn't start with, I'm going to write a book. You started with developing content and testing ideas and creating new frameworks and new metaphors and concepts, and then seeing how they resonated. And it was only after you saw that it was working and working even better than other ways you had taught the same content that you said it needs a broader audience. And I just want to spell that out for people listening, because I just had this conversation the other day. Someone was afraid to talk about the book they were writing. They were afraid someone would steal their idea. And I said, well, then you haven't done it enough. Like, like you can't write about something that no one knows you do. Like, you need to be actively doing that work. And so it sounds like that was your experience, the play with the ideas a little bit, which makes sense. You're very playful in your approach to work, before sitting down and committing to a book. So did I capture that?
You did, Robbie. And I also think that writing the book was also an exercise in me figuring out how it had changed. Being able to explain it in a succinct framework and a way to then take my marketing and how I talked about my work to the next level. So it was everything that I'd been practicing, but I learned through writing the book how to communicate it better and how to help it resonate with other people so that I could reach that broader audience and do the work.
Mm-hmm. I do find that the process of writing a good quality book, particularly one where you have support from a developmental editor or a writing coach or a community group writing practice, where you're getting feedback from an expert and also people who are your likely readers in the future. It is a metamorphosis as a writer to crystallize concepts, name frameworks. I mean, this is actually part of what happened for you. Is you had stuff that I know you were teaching, but the framework was really built out through this process. Explain a little bit about what that was like for you to know what you know, and then realize, oh, but others need to understand it too.
Right. I was just talking with a coaching client about this recently. When I first meet a leader, they're typically quite overwhelmed. They haven't invested in the resource of a coach or a class because they've been underwater. They've been firefighting and trying to get through things. And when it finally comes to the point where they're like, wait, I can't sustain this, I have to do something different, it feels like they've tried everything in their power to make the dance feel better, to make that person that frustrates them feel not as draining, to make the workload feel lighter. They've tried everything. So when they come to me, they're pretty skeptical.
Yeah.
They're like, well, how are you going to change this thing that I've been in for months, years, right? They've maybe even changed jobs and still feel like they're in the same slog. And I come bebopping in and say, well, just try this. And they're like, I cue the eye roll, right? I think that the framework in my book with the 4 steps that everyone needs to take, to feel your feet flat on the floor, to learn how to hold the frame as a leader in a partner dance, to learn how to connect and calibrate and to take the lead. Creating that framework helped me explain to someone how this is different than anything else that they've tried.
I don't know if I ever told you this, but when I've heard you talk about this, and I've read through your book, I always picture the scene from Dirty Dancing. I do. It just happened again.
I love it.
Swayze's like telling her, no, like, and then she's telling him, oh no, we need to hold the frame, and she's teasing him back. So just that whole idea, right, of structure, space, partnership, collaboration, fun.
Yes.
It's just a great little clip. It's almost like a meme just popped in my head or something. Maybe I know you do some really fun social posts, so maybe you can find a way to incorporate a clip from that.
I'll have to do that.
What was the biggest mindset shift when you moved from being the entrepreneur to what we might call the authorpreneur, when the book became part of the overall, totality of who Stacey is in the world?
That's a great question, Robbie. I think this whole idea of communicating what I wrote about became the next challenge. I feel like when I wrote the book, I was so stuck in on why I'm writing the book or getting the book done, right? And then it was, figure out how to explain who needs this, why they need this, and how they can interact with me, what offers I have. I think those were the things I hadn't thought about while I was writing the book. So I remember when you and I first met, one of the first things you told me was, look at all these things you already have. You have leadership labs and you have coaching and you have all these things in place already, but none of them are connected. Yeah.
I remember that conversation because it's almost like when I meet with a more established entrepreneur, because I think I feel like I end up working with the extremes, people who are really just trying to figure out how to take expertise from a 30-year career and turn it into a business. And they're really just getting started. And then I have people who, like you, are really quite established. And the second is more of an inventory of assets, because we often we build things and we sometimes don't connect the dots between offers, or we build things in these communication silos that we don't mean to, but we just don't see the through line. Or maybe the through line is something that we see. Actually, it's probably this latter. We, as the entrepreneur, can see a through line, but it's not super visible to everybody else. And I should say that as a person who's a multi-passionate entrepreneur, right? Like I get the need to find the overarching like theme through something, but you had a lot of assets going for you, proven offers, people who you were connecting with and engaging, great feedback from clients. You were getting some inbound. And the book, I remember the reason we even ended up working together is I asked like a simple question maybe of like, oh, so tell me how the book fits in with your overall business plan. And you stalled a little on the answer. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. I'm like, what? Huh.
It wasn't out yet. The book wasn't
Right?
published
Yeah.
yet. You were
Yeah.
so, this is so, it happens so often with authors. You were so in the zone of getting the book done. Like
Right.
you were just so close. And I'm actually, as we record this, kind of in those last 5% of my fourth book, Launch Your Book, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Reviews That Drive Revenue. And I joked with you before we went on air that the last 5% can take 8 years, if you let it. So I know kind of where your energy was, but then I was like, well, what comes next? Like, how does it fit your business? And you had this sort of like, oh, right. That was what started all this. And, I feel like something changed about how you talked about the book when it was a reality versus how you thought of the book when it was still in formation. Like, share a little bit about that journey as well, because I think for those who haven't yet published, this all feels like, I don't know, theoretical, like, and
Well,
then
it feels
it was here.
theoretical. And I think, like a lot of coaches, I get hung up on the whole idea of selling. I'm not comfortable selling myself, selling my services. It's taken me a long time as an entrepreneur to find a marketing strategy and marketing voice that feels authentic to me. And with the book, I hadn't gone through any process related to that yet. So here I am about to launch a book, and I don't have authentic feeling marketing yet. I don't have offers that are connected to each other with, the names and the metaphors were all contradictory. It was like, we're using dancing, but then over here, we're using something else, sailing in a boat. And what are we doing? One of the things that was really transformational for me in the process that you and I did together was the notion of the book launch. And I remember you telling me for my book launch party and my book launch invites that the party would be to help the attendees taste the content of the book and understand what the offer was that they might benefit from as a leader. And from there, everything fell into place for me. Suddenly, they're not just my friends and family. They're people who can benefit from my work. They're people who can get a taste of this and come and support me. And we get to launch the book at the same time. And it wasn't just selling the book, marketing the book, sending out, I don't know how to describe it, fakey marketing messages that felt salesy. I didn't want that. So that really helped for me.
I'm glad to hear that, because I know, your brand is Authentic Edge, right? So for you to do something that didn't feel good for you, even if it was a proven marketing tactic, like it wouldn't work for you because it wasn't the way you'd want to approach it. And I think that, in sort of hindsight 2020, clearly the book and the launch and the party should have always been about the prospects and the referral partners and the clients. But it does get lost because I think that most people, particularly for the first book, the act of doing it is just like the celebration, right? The celebration is that you are one of the, I think, what is the study? Like 82% of people want to write a book, 1% actually does. So if you're in a world where that's the case and you actually finish this major project, then you think, let's just invite all the people who've ever supported me in my entire lifetime to come and do this and celebrate me. But that's not as forward thinking as you would like it to be, given all the work you put into it. And of course, the message of your book is going to go further faster because the people who need that message, those middle managers, that sticky middle, those
Right.
awkward middle school adults who need to hear that there's another method and to see not just the framework, but some of the stories and the results, and just to feel hope from you. They needed to hear it, and they needed to know how to share that message with other people. So yeah, I feel really fortunate that I came into my first book with a really strong understanding of how important my network was. because my first book was about networking. So like I actually got to that point in the writing and like the formatting, and the book was going to the editor and all of that. And I had this like, oh wow, the book's gonna happen. Oh wait, I want people to read this book. It's a good book. Like I just had this aha moment, and I stalled the publication date in order to develop a launch plan that was all about activating my network. Like to me, that fit because the book also was about networking, right? So I think I accidentally fell into a really thoughtful strategy that I
Right.
then tried to replicate for myself and others. Um, I'm curious about the early signs that you received to help you understand that the book was working for you in your business, that there were opportunities coming to you. Like, when did you have that, like, this was absolutely worth all the effort?
I think there are two things that come to mind. One is during the review process, when the reviews came in and I was asking my network for reviews, one of the themes and trends that came through was people kept commenting that they could hear me talking, that it was my voice in the book. And people who'd been coached by me, people who had taken my classes would say in their Amazon review, oh, this reading this book is like sitting down for a coaching session or a coffee with Stacey. That lit me up, got me so excited because I'm like, this is what I want. This is exactly what success in a book means to me, is to capture how I am in real life with my clients for people who haven't met me before.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think it also builds trust so much more quickly with those who don't know you and haven't had that personal connection, because you wrote in a very accessible way. You meet people where they are. You don't have all this jargon. You have kind of this fun metaphor that makes me think of Dirty Dancing. So it's a little bit of a lightheartedness in a difficult moment. It's less, let's have a conversation about difficult conversations, right? Like it's not the I don't know, there's just like a formulaic way of approaching workplace dynamics, communication, and challenges that you have kind of sidestepped the usual, but you're also not so far afield that people don't know where to slot you. They understand the
Mhm.
solution that you're working towards, and then in the problem that they have and how it all fits. But I think that the narrative voice, I'd love to hear more about that, because I think a lot of people writing a book. My first book I stalled on for years because my only prior background was writing academic papers, and I mean, I have a master's in social work, but I didn't go near the like length that you went to with a doctorate. But I didn't like that kind of writing, and I didn't feel good about it, and that's part of the message in my head of like, oh, you're not a writer. But when I discovered a way to write the way I speak, that
Mhm.
opened up things for me. How did you shift from this academic sort of formula writing to a much more accessible frame or flow?
I did several things. I talked into my recorder on my phone and then would use that to write from. I had an editor, Kate Macklin was great. She would get on a Zoom call with me and we would go over what I was writing. And I would say, I don't know how to say this simpler. And we would play with it.
Mm.
And we would find the spots where it didn't feel like me. I would try things on. She goes, that's the one, that's the one. And we'd write it out. And she'd say, but change this word and do that. And it was those sections that were more difficult for me to put in my own words or in words that would land quite right. She was a great partner in helping me to do that.
So would you describe her role as a developmental editor then? Because she was helping you as you were framing things and working your way through the process?
It was yeah, I think so.
I'm
Yeah.
just curious because I think for those who aren't as
Hmm.
familiar, and I wasn't, I always just thought there was an editor, right? But the developmental editor is much earlier in the process because they can help you figure out the order of things, how they flow together, make sure that you're not skipping 6 steps.
She definitely did that.
Yeah.
And then we would come back and do another scan, and we would go into the sections that needed more work. Yeah.
Which
So it
is,
was
so
a both.
there's that, and then there's copy editors, which is more of the like the format and the bullets and the grammar and the, you know, no, obviously no typos, things like that. And then there's the proofread at the end. So there's sort of three main levels of editors for folks who are thinking about this. And not all editors do all three. Like they're really different skill sets. You're also going to find more of what you're describing in a writing coach. So a writing coach would be another way to look for someone either in a community where you're one of many who are kind of going through a process together, or one-on-one, which is, you know, you get further faster with that one-on-one
Right.
attention. I love that you had that feedback. And if I remember correctly, you were actually given a list of questions to even get you thinking about this and helping you create the original outline. What was that?
Absolutely. This is another part of the process that I went through with my book coach that appealed to me in the first place, was writing a different kind of book. Interestingly enough, when I went to get the reviews and I sent it out to a lot of colleagues, I actually had one person that I had asked to do a review who said no. And to her credit, she reached out to me and said, I'd like to have a conversation around why I'm not going to write this for you. And it turned out she was expecting a leadership book, more like a traditional leadership book that would give you all the answers, that would give you the things in very great detail. And it would be pretty buttoned up, right? More formal and traditional. And this is much more, hey, here's how I look at things. Here's the framework I use. Here's some stories that have happened here. But I'm not teaching you how you can use the whole framework and suddenly magically be able to put it all together in a way a textbook would teach you. I'm introducing you to it. And she said, you know what? This just isn't my bailiwick. This isn't what I would expect in a leadership book. So I don't feel like I should give you the review. But she said, and this is such a compliment. She said, but I wanted to have a conversation with you about this live, because in your book, that's what your book is about. Dancing with someone when you don't like something or when something isn't working, and having the honest conversation. And so your book and what you wrote, Stacey, is the reason why I'm saying no and talking to you now. And I took that as a compliment.
I think so. I mean, one, she really read it, which is cool. I mean, we always hope that's the real goal here, folks. It's not that you just give your book out and everyone creates AI generated reviews of your book and we all call it a day. Like that's not going to get us the pipeline and the impact that we want and have the book reach the people who need it most if it just goes in a proverbial stack of books that will never actually get read. I love that this person read it, and in some ways, a thoughtfully written 3-star review, if she had chosen to do it, would have actually helped your book, because I don't need all my books to get a 5-star. I just want the review that they write to be helpful. So if she had given that context of what it wasn't, what she was looking for, but how it was still helpful and who might benefit from it, everyone's going to read the 3-star review, right? Because there's all the rest of them are 5. And it might make other people go, oh, this is actually more of what I want. I want to understand how she thinks, and I want to understand her approach. And I don't want a long book. Like, I'm glad that this isn't like every single detail. I always joke that my wife, who reads a ton of romance, and because of her, I do too, not to snark on romance, but she'll see a 1-star review for a book that says, oh, so much smut. She's like, oh, what's the book? You know what I mean? Like, one person's yuck is someone else's yum. Like, a quality review just helps future readers decide whether the book is for them. Speaking of which, I want to say congratulations. You have 69 overall ratings. That's the 5-star, 1 through 5 stars, whether or not people buy the book or write a review. But even more importantly, 68 of those 69 people wrote a review on Amazon, which is phenomenal. I mean, it clearly shows you made an effort to get written reviews because you're way past the 50 mark, way past the 20 mark. And almost every single person, I bet you that 69th rating is someone whose review hasn't come in yet. Like, it's always a little slight delay. And you have been getting a lot of reviews even very recently. So there's also the fact that you're continuously getting reviews, even though the book's been out for a while. You just had one come in, a couple of days ago. So that's awesome. Tell me a little bit about your review writing process. Like we did all this work together to build the right launch team and all of that. It's a lot of work. I have to acknowledge that, but you did it beautifully. So what was that experience like?
Thank you for that. And you were essential in that, Robbie. I wouldn't have known how to do it. But what I really loved about the process was that with some templates that you provided, I could be myself within those templates and express myself and connect with my network, while at the same time making the process doable for me on the back end. And I think the key to getting enough reviews for me, I think, came down to two things. One, persistence, with which anybody who knows me knows that I'm persistent. I'm pleasantly persistent. I am just there. And so people got lots of reminders and lots of, here's how I can make it easier for you, things like that. And then the second thing would be, I have an amazing number of people, 400 plus, who I have taught, who I have coached, who I have encountered in some way, shape, or form, that I have built relationships with. Mm-hmm. Whether I coached them for 1 hour or 6 months or years, I connect with people on a real level, and I'm different. Mm-hmm. And that's part of who I am. I authentically show up. And so when I was pleasantly surprised when I went out to ask people for reviews, how many people said, well, of course. And I was pretty floored, to be honest. But in retrospect, I think that's what it is I connect. There's no fakey here.
And I actually remember your stats because it was impressive at the time. You had 131 people say yes. So you had about 400 people that you went through and built a list of people who were familiar with you and your work. And you asked all of them, and 131 affirmatively joined. Some of them maybe helped out without officially being on the launch team. And 65 of them wrote a review before the book was published based on the advanced reader copy and the writing prompts that we gave them. And that was an incredible, 50%, I tell people 30% is like the average. 50% is what will trickle in over time. The fact that you started with 50% before the book was published showed me that for the people who said yes, they were highly engaged, they were supported by you to do it, and they wanted to make it happen, because we're not in the habit of writing reviews. We're in the habit of using reviews. I mean, there's studies saying over 90% of people read reviews before making a purchase. And I think we all are like, yeah, that's me. I get that. But very few of us write reviews on a regular basis. So to have all those people take action that way, that was excellent. Did anything surprise you about any relationships that were maybe strengthened, or any new relationships, clients, referral partners, collaborators, any of these unexpected sort of wins?
Yeah, I think people in my network who I had worked with years ago were reminded of some of the things we did. They read the new book and were refreshed in what I do and encouraged by what I do now. And suddenly they began referring business to me. And so, and asking me to come work with them again. So people that I'd worked with 10 years before, 5 years before, people who'd graduated from leadership classes that I taught were saying, well, wait a second. Oh yeah, Stacey's out there and look, she's got a new book. So let's have her in. Let's re-engage her.
I love this. I tell authors that, you don't need a book to do the outreach into your network. I mean, my second book, Small List, Big Results, launch a successful offer no matter the size. Your email list is based on the premise that there's these steps you can do to wake up your network and engage with people. I just think having a book gives the business owner, the author, kind of the impetus to actually do it, because it is effort, and you're just so darn proud of this content you've created and the impact you believe it'll have on the world, and the effort, time, and money you've poured into it makes you maybe want to do a little more. But I've been describing lately a book as that little brick that holds a door open, because it's not just a one-time overture to invite people to join your launch team. For those who say yes, all those polite, persistent nudges was you having a conversation through that little crack in the doorway. And that door gets propped open a little wider as they start responding back. And that's when they have that light bulb moment of like, oh, right, Stacey, we should bring you in for this, or let me refer you to this person, or who needs to talk to you, or let's get you on this podcast, or let's buy a whole bunch of your books and pass them out to our class. All that comes not from a blast message out to a list or to social media, but because of sustained conversation over the length of that launch period of, I don't know, 8 weeks or so. Mm-hmm. And I keep picturing the book kind of being that little prop that holds the door open, so it can't close all the way in between those conversations. And for you, it really did develop that pipeline. Like you streamlined what the descriptions were for all your programming to make it all make more intuitive sense, and it feels like it lined up. So any final thoughts on sort of how the people in the launch sequence like ended up being part of your next round of business and all of that?
Not necessarily on the people in the launch itself, but there were people at the same time that were learning who I was on LinkedIn. And I had mentioned before, the people I was writing the book for were people I hadn't met yet. And this is the first time I've really focused on doing that, was with this book. And I vividly remember a VP who was just meeting me, just being introduced to me, and he bought my book. And we were just having a get to know you session. And he had read the book, because you can finish it in a couple of hours. And he started getting all excited and quoting me to me. And I was kind of floored. I'm like, what? He goes, I've been a leader. I've worked in GE, for heaven's sakes. And I have had more training than so many people. And this is new to me. And this is exciting. And I want to talk to you more about this. And the book did that. The book created that curiosity in him to learn more when he thought he'd been through it all.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And it gave us such a great introduction, and it did exactly what I was hoping it would do, is it helped me connect with that person who didn't know me.
I love that. Now that the book exists, how are you keeping it alive after the launch, revisiting it, re-promoting it, weaving into, your existing social media content? How are you preventing yourself from just moving on to the next big thing? Because that's another part of being an entrepreneur, is like the shiny newness. How is it sort of now part of the work that you talk about?
I faithfully sign up for every one of your Kindle cross promotion groups. What are there, 3 a year?
Yeah.
And I sign up every time. This time around, just last week, the participation in that, I don't remember how far down in the rankings I had gone, but I got back up to number 3 in communication and management by being in the cross promotion. So that's exciting.
That is exciting.
The other thing that I do regularly is I'll grab a quote from the book, or I'll grab a piece of the concept in the book and put it out on social media about once every 2 weeks to keep myself grounded in what I wrote and connecting back to that.
All right, we've talked about this offline a little bit, so I kind of know your answer, but how is AI helping you do that? Are you
Oh my gosh,
leveraging that?
Revolutionary. I'm training my own AI. So I go into ChatGPT and I actually fed it a copy of my book, and I fed it some of my social media posts and different things. And now I go in and I want to write a post about this and this and this for this audience, and this is the style I want it to be in, and it gives me a draft. And I talk to it. I tell it, no, do this, no, do that. And I spend maybe 10 minutes on a post or an article because it will help me flesh it out, and then I can tweak the draft from there. Whereas before, I was spending so much time and getting so in the weeds on creating all my marketing materials.
I think that's it. I've been trying to, I have like a secondary message. I mean, the first message I always have for people is stop chasing bestseller status. The second message I think is once the book exists, your approach to content creation needs to change dramatically. No more sitting there staring at blank pages. It's about repurposing 7 Ways to Sunday, what you've already done. You've already put the hard work in, and a combination of a VA and AI, and you, of course, always doing the final edits and final touch to make sure it's in your voice and that it's correct, can simplify that process. Like you've already poured all the ideas out of your head into a format that other people can interact with, and other tools like AI can interact with. I think that's so cool. And I'm even seeing it now in the process of, this is the first time I'm writing a book while using AI effectively. My third book came out right as AI was like, ChatGPT was kind of coming into our consciousness, and I really wasn't using it. But yes, it knows my voice now. I can ask it to create social posts. I mean, all of that, even in the process of writing the book, it's been really fun. I'd love to know, as we wrap up here, I've got 2 kind of marketing questions. One is a successful strategy that you've used for either selling or gifting large quantities of books. Like, how did you get your books into the hands of the people who needed it?
Whenever I go into an organization and work with a team, I either gift the book in with the package, like right in as part of the package cost, or I give it and then ask who they think would find it useful. And this has led to introductions to other leaders throughout the company, work with different departments, which helps everyone have the same common language and grow skills while I'm also selling my book and my services.
I mean, it helps them actually take action. I always say, don't invite just one person from a company, invite at least 2, because it's really hard to bring new ideas back if you're the only one who heard them. So the more people in an organization who have that common language, understand the framework, can like say, remind each other of different pieces of it and collaborate as they're working through it, the better. So it's great that you have this tool, this product that you can offer in that way. All right, last marketing question. What's a marketing effort you would not recommend to other authors? Something you were like, oh, that was a waste of time. Anything not work for you?
Not recommend. You know, I used to do a lot of, I try to do salesy kinds of Zooms, right? Where I'd put it out there that I was going to have a live call and then people could come. But it was just like buckshot, right? Like, who's going to come? I didn't do the networking that I could have done to get people there. I'm just on there talking about my book and then praying some perfect person's going to show up and hire me. I think that's not worth your time.
What you're doing now is you have these monthly calls, right, that are focused.
I have monthly calls that are for any alums from any of my programs.
Mhm.
And we hop on and they bring their challenge, and I live coach whoever shows up. And
Mhm.
we always surprise ourselves with where the community ends up having a conversation. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, same hour, but much more useful hour of your
Mhm.
time. And if you could give others advice about how they might approach writing a book to help them grow a business, particularly the launch part of it, how they can think about what comes after the book exists, what might you offer them?
Hire Robbie.
Boy, that was a slam dunk. Well, thank you very much, Stacey.
No, seriously. So here's the thing.
Okay.
I know that you don't necessarily, it's you're humble, right? But what I want to say about you is I will say that you have saved me tons and tons of time, and you give me energy around my book and my work in meaningful ways. You're wired to look at details and spreadsheets and templates and all these things that, as a coach and as a leadership big picture thinker, that's not my thing. And what you do complements me so
Mhm.
well. And your techniques also resonate, and you care. So put that all together, and that's the perfect piece for me. So if it's as simple as hiring Robbie, or finding the way that someone can have support
Mhm.
for the things that drain them, so that the system, the process, the templates, the something are in place, and you don't feel guilty that you're not doing it.
I think thank you. And what I think you're touching on also is don't go with someone who only has one way, because if it doesn't work for you, then you're kind of stuck and you've invested a lot of money in their one way. And it's important to find someone who can adapt a process to the way you show up in life. I happen to be a person who has like big vision, but I will also 100% get into the weeds on anything. Like granular. In fact, that's where I am in my book right now. I'm like down to the like, is it supposed to be a straight quotation or a curly quotation mark? Like I'm trying to understand, you know what I mean? Like, come on, it's like it's not even my pay grade to do that. It's someone else's job, but I'm still like, I want it to be correct before I hand it off.
Mhm.
So I like getting into the weeds, but I also want to find a process that works for people. So I think what you're more or less saying also is just find the right kind of support, right kind of coach. I love that beyond the book, we continue to work together just on business stuff. And that's where I feel like all of it meshes together, because you had like a strong concept for the book, and now leveraging. It's been beautiful to witness. I appreciate just being brought on your entrepreneurial journey with you. Speaking of which, how can people find you and follow your work?
They can find me on LinkedIn at Stacey with an EY, Larsen with an EN, and the number 1, or at my website, www.authenticedge.com.
Listen, we're going to put all the links to your that you mentioned, including to your book and your YouTube. All of that's going to be in the show notes at bizbookpubhub.com, which is where you'll find all of the show notes from the episodes that air every Tuesday and Thursday. Also, an invitation to join one of the 3 Kindle cross promotion campaigns that we have 3 times a year that Stacey was talking about earlier. An invitation to come to the free virtual networking events that I host every month. There's so much more in there, including a couple of dozen experts who can support you through any part of the journey, from writing, editing, publishing, launching, and marketing. We would love you to come check it out at bizbookpubhub.com. Stacey, thank you so much for this conversation. It's just been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Robbie.